Assassins. Just say the word. What pops into your head? Probably shadowy figures, political murder, and this almost fanatical devotion, right? For centuries, their story has been one of history's most gripping legends. We're talking a secret mountain fortress, a hidden paradise garden, brainwashed killers. But what if I told you that legend is mostly a lie? What if the truth is way more complex and, honestly, a lot more interesting? Let's deconstruct one of history's most misunderstood groups together.
Okay, so the story that has captivated the West for hundreds of years, it pretty much starts right here, with the famous traveler Marco Polo. Back in the 13th century, his stories from the East painted this picture of a world that was both incredible and, well, terrifying. He talks about this mysterious leader, the Old Man of the Mountain, who had supposedly built a secret paradise, a perfect copy of the heaven promised in the Quran.
So according to Polo, the story goes like this. Young men were drugged and carried into this hidden garden. When they woke up, they were surrounded by just unbelievable beauty, music, fountains flowing with wine and honey, the whole shebang. They were told, hey, you just had a little sneak peek of the afterlife. And the deal was simple but powerful. Die a martyr's death serving your master, and you get a permanent ticket back here. This vision, so the legend claims, is what created the fearless, fanatical killers we now call the assassins.
I mean, it's a cinematic story, right? The Old Man in the Mountain. It's been told and retold for almost 1,000 years. It's so powerful that it actually shaped our language. The word assassin comes directly from this group. And to really get the legend, we need to start with the man at the very center of it all.
Meet Hasan Sabbah. History remembers him as this brilliant, charismatic, and absolutely ruthless leader. In the year 1090, he seized the fortress of Alamut in the mountains of what's now Iran. I mean, this place was basically impregnable. From this eagle's nest, he built an organization that struck terror into the hearts of sultans, caliphs, even crusader kings. He was the original Old Man of the Mountain.
But this is where we're going to hit the brakes. Because as thrilling as the legend is, the historical reality tells a very, very different story. We are about to peel back centuries of propaganda and just plain misunderstanding to get to the truth of who these people really were.
So let's just ask the big question. What if Marco Polo, who wrote his account almost 30 years after the Assassin's Fortress was totally destroyed by the Mongols, what if he was just repeating secondhand gossip? Rumors that were spread by the group's most powerful enemies? What if the whole story, the hashish, the paradise garden, was just a brilliant and incredibly effective smear campaign?
This slide right here gets to the absolute core of the misunderstanding. Their enemies called them the Hashashin. It was a nasty term in Arabic, basically calling them low-class undesirables, or literally hashish eaters. But here's the kicker. That term is never, not even once, found in any of their own writings. A much more likely origin for their name is assassin, which means guardians, or even cooler, protectors of the mysteries. Now that sounds less like a drug cult and more like a philosophical mission, doesn't it?
And this quote from historian Ismail Kaygusus just flips the whole narrative on its head. It paints a picture of Hasan Sabbah, not as some terrorist mastermind, but as the founder of a really unique state, one built on ideas like equality and sharing. In this version of the story, his followers, who were called the fedayeen, which means those who sacrifice themselves, they weren't mindless killers at all. They were a highly trained elite unit used for defensive strategic strikes against powerful rulers who were threatening their community's very survival.
And this is Alamut, see? Not some pleasure palace. It was a brilliantly chosen strategic fortress, tucked away high in the Elburz Mountains. It was basically unconquerable. This wasn't the hideout of some madman with a secret garden. It was the capital of a political and spiritual leader who really understood military strategy. He knew that his small community needed a secure base to have any chance of surviving against the huge Seljuk Empire that surrounded them.
Which brings us to how they fought. You see, they didn't have a big army, so Hasan Sabbah basically pioneered a form of asymmetrical warfare. The fedayeen used the dagger, a weapon that means you have to get incredibly close to your target. Their attacks were almost always in public, like in mosques or crowded courts, designed to send a crystal-clear political message of defiance. And they were precise. The historian Bernard Lewis points out they went to great lengths to avoid harming innocent people, only targeting the political and military elites who were actively trying to wipe them out. This was targeted political theater, not random terror.
But to really, truly understand them, we have to look past the politics and the warfare. Because at its heart, this whole movement wasn't just about surviving. It was built on this deep, complex, and pretty radical spiritual doctrine that challenged the very foundations of religion at the time.
So who were they, for real?
Well, they were Nizari Ismailis, a branch of Shia Islam. And their central belief was that the literal words of the Quran, the Zahar, or the external stuff, was actually hiding a deeper, secret truth, the batin, the internal meaning. And this hidden meaning could only be unlocked with guidance from a divinely inspired leader, the Imam. Their belief system was this incredible mix of Islamic theology, Gnostic ideas about secret knowledge, and even Greek Neoplatonic philosophy. Their ultimate goal wasn't just to build a state, it was to achieve spiritual liberation.
And if you want to know just how radical they were, get this. In 1164, a while after Hasan Sabbah died, his successor declared the Qiyamah, or the Great Resurrection. He basically abolished Islamic religious law for his followers. The message here was huge. For those who understood the inner truth, the outer rituals didn't matter anymore. They had reached the spiritual paradise right here on earth. That was their real paradise garden. It was a state of enlightenment, not a physical place.
So how did they lead their followers to this state of mind? Well, the sources talk about this highly structured, secret initiation process. It was a path with 9 degrees, designed to systematically take apart a person's entire belief system layer by layer.
The whole process started by creating doubt. Initiates were taught to question everything they thought they knew. As they moved up, they learned that prophets weren't the final word of God, but just stages in a truth that was always evolving. By the middle degrees, they were taught that religious laws were just allegories, tools made up by clever lawgivers to control ordinary people. And by the final, 9th degree, the initiate was stripped of all dogma, totally free to become a pure philosopher, able to see a universal truth that went beyond any single religion.
And this is the ultimate twist, isn't it? The legend tells us about a system that demanded blind obedience, using drugs and lies. The reality? It was a system designed to achieve the complete opposite. It was an intellectual and spiritual journey meant to create a mind that was free, critical, and not bound by dogma. This was the real source of their followers' fierce loyalty, not some fake paradise, but a deep philosophical conviction.
Now, the story of the Nizari state at Alamut comes to a pretty dramatic and violent end. But the story of its people, and maybe more importantly, their ideas, well, that doesn't end there. Their legacy is way more widespread and surprising than most people think, and it echoes into our world today in ways you probably wouldn't expect.
Hasan Sabbah's state in Persia lasted for 167 years, but in 1256, the unstoppable Mongol horde, led by Hulagu Khan, Genghis Khan's grandson, showed up at the gates of Alamut. The fortress fell, and its legendary library, which was filled with priceless texts on philosophy, science, and religion, was burned to the ground. I mean, what a loss for history. The Nizari state was shattered, but the people and their faith survived. They scattered into secret communities all across Persia, Central Asia, and India. And today, they are known as the Ismaili community, a global population of millions led by their 49th Imam, the Aga Khan.
This image really captures the violent end of an era. The Mongol invasion was a total cataclysm. The fall of Alamut meant the end of the Nizaris as a political power, and it forced their intellectual and spiritual traditions to go underground, where they'd have to survive for centuries before they could reemerge into the world.
But, okay, here is maybe the most shocking part of their legacy. While the Persian Nizaris were fighting the Seljuks, a branch of their community out in Syria came into direct contact with the Crusader orders. And some historians argue that their influence on one group in particular was profound, the legendary Knights Templar.
Now that is a powerful claim from the scholar S. Amir Ali. He's suggesting that the very structure of European secret societies might have been inspired by Ismaili models. Think about the parallels for a second. The Templars had a rigid hierarchy with a Grand Master on top, just like the Ismailis had an imam and a chief missionary. Both orders wore distinctive white mantles. Both had secret initiation rituals and hidden doctrines that set them apart from mainstream religion. The similarities are pretty striking, and they suggest that ideas, not just military tactics, but organizational and philosophical ideas, might have traveled from east to west.
So when we add it all up, their legacy today has these 4 key echoes. First, the living, thriving community of Ismailis. Second, an organizational blueprint, this hierarchical structure of initiation and command that may have influenced Western groups for centuries. Third, our language itself, which carries their name, even if it's based on enemy propaganda. And finally, the sheer power of their legend, the story of a small, defiant group that used intelligence and conviction to stand up to an empire.
And that really leaves us with one last thought.
The story of the assassins is a powerful reminder that history is so often written by the enemies of the people who lost. The legend of drugged killers was a much more convenient story for their conquerors than the truth of a sophisticated community with a radical philosophy that challenged everything. It forces us to ask how many other stories that we think we know are just the versions that were allowed to survive.